Kids all high school. Had it, there were two guys pounding on her door. Before the election. They were in meters or something. She was panicked stricken, so her mom got a hold of her and said, "Can you go down and check this out?" Hey, I'm a 7-year-old. Why am I going to help you?
Call to order our city council meeting for Tuesday, November 21st. If I could get a roll call, please.
Gesme.
Here.
Grote.
Here.
Jepson.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Cronenberger.
Here.
Lundell. Montgomery.
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If I could get an approval for tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Motion from Lisa. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Steve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. That brings us to public input. Before I read through this, everybody that signed up, if you signed up to talk 72nd Avenue, save that for the public hearing. There are a few people on here that signed up for something else. They will be called in for public input, and then when we open the public hearing, you'll get called to the microphone. So, public input is intended to afford the public an opportunity to address concerns to the City Council. The public input will be no longer than 30 minutes in total length. Each speaker will have no more than 3 minutes to speak. Speakers may address topics relevant to the governance of the city. Speakers must sign up in advance, must provide their name, address, and the topic they intend to address. Comments must be on topic, respectful, pertinent to city business, and adhere to the applicable data privacy rules. Any speaker that violates these rules will be asked to sit down. If the speaker refuses to comply, they may be removed from the meeting. Speakers shall not address topics that are the subject of a public hearing. All such comments shall be made at the public hearing. The City Council will not generally act on issues raised by the public input, but may choose to schedule consideration of the item on a future agenda. Becky Youngmark, Park Board.
Do I need to turn this on, or is it okay?
Yep. Go ahead. The button should be right at the base. It should be green.
I think, is that better?
There you go.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
My name's Becky Youngmark. I'm here to discuss the combination of the Park Board and the Public Works. That's an agenda item on tonight's agenda. I'm very disappointed at the lack of communication and transparency that seems to be consistent trait of the city. As a tax-paying citizen of Cannon Falls, I feel one of my jobs is to help keep you guys accountable. On October 17th, Council Member Derek Lundell, who sits on both boards, proposed that at the City Council meeting that those boards be put together under Public Works. He stated that this was to save time for the staff. I'm a member of the Park Board, and the Park Board November 2nd meeting was canceled because there were no agenda items. Yet the elimination of the Park Board wasn't important enough to tell its members that it was being eliminated, so it could be discussed at the November 2nd meeting. I read about Derek's proposal in the Cannon Falls Beacon. I emailed Ken Carpenter, the head of the Park Board, and City Administrator Neil Jensen. Ken emailed me back stating he also was not aware of it and read about it in the Beacon. I got no response from Neil. Last Monday, Finance met and the Park Board was an agenda item for them. They decided to recommend to City Council that Park Board be combined and be placed under Public Works. The Park Board currently has 4 citizens and 1 council member. Public Works has 2 council members and 1 citizen. The recommendation for the new committee is 3 citizens and 2 city council members. My question is, why did this get on the finance agenda, and what authority do they have to make a recommendation that Park Board be changed? The combination of the Park Board and Public Works is on the agenda for tonight's City Council, with no communication with those of us that sit on the Park Board. This process involves the repealing of City Ordinances 369 and 373, and then approving a new Ordinance 401 to establish a Public Works and Park Advisory Board. Once again, there's lack of communication and transparency on the city's part. We've been serving on the Park Board for several years, and yet no one has discussed the possibility of the board being put into Public Works with any of us that are on the Park Board. I understand that after many years of having no Park Board, the City Council revived the Park Board in 2016 because the parks had been neglected. Parks were not high on the priority list for the Public Works Board. In the 7 years since, there's been significant improvement to the parks, but there's still a lot to do. And that's proof by a list of needed improvements that was submitted to the park board a while back. The concern is that we will end up with that same neglect because of the priority that will be given to public works over the needs of the parks. There are 3 housing developments in the works along with the McCannonball apartment building. Parks are a big draw for people to move into the community. Derek would like to combine these 2 boards to make it easier for staff. I thought an elected office was to make good decisions for the citizens of this community, not to accommodate schedules. As stated earlier, our parks were neglected in the past when this plan was in effect before 2016. Why would it suddenly work when it was failed in the past? We are finally making headway with the parks and have 4 citizens willing to volunteer for the good of the community and to ensure our parks are a priority. I would recommend that the city council consider leaving the committees the way they are. Cannon Falls should be a community that puts our parks as a priority to encourage new families to move into our community. It's time for the council to consider what's best for the citizens of Cannon Falls and not change the rules to accommodate elected officials and staff. That's what they get paid for. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Becky. Next up, Tim Deemer.
Thank you, Tim Deemer. Thank you, council, mayor, and citizens. I was gonna just back out or not change my mind to speak, but I kind of echo, ditto what they said. Can they flip the camera to face? Is that
I don't know.
They did
control
it once
if it's
before.
auto. I don't know which one it is.
There he goes. Perfect. So I guess to start with, I was just going to ask about what's the last part of this paragraph you read about the issues raised by the public input. You may choose to schedule, or it starts out by saying the City Council of Cannon Falls will not generally act. So does that mean you could, it's the way I'm reading, not generally, but you may choose to schedule consideration of the item on a future agenda, and that's kind of what I'm asking, related to flag etiquette partly, and just the upkeep of flags for the city. And my title I used for what I was going to talk about, just community common sense. And for I was going to make handouts. And actually, I was just going to make copies of our cents, our coins, and I could hand out the coins, but I'm sure you guys got some that. And the 3 main things on every coin, or besides the date, there's it says these 3 parts of liberty, the in God we trust part, which many people are. Come together with that, and the main one is e pluribus unum. It's on every single coin and a $1 bill. You gotta look for it. It's hard to find on that dollar bill, but e pluribus, many, as unum, as one, to be united, to be working together, and so forth. So, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks. Did you comment on if it'll be considered, or do I find out?
We'll have to talk about the flag etiquette. Is that what you were?
No, I'm just talking about if you'll schedule a consideration. Do I?
Bring it up and we can see if we can put something on the agenda in the future.
Thanks.
That leads us to public hearings. Item A tonight, 2024 final budget and levy public hearing. Neil, when I open this, will you give a presentation on the budget to begin? All right. So we have officially opened the public hearing for the 2024 final budget and levy public hearing. Neil will start off with a presentation, and then if people would like to speak on that after, they can.
So this is no action required tonight. Our action will be taken at the second meeting of December. So this is the public hearing that's mandated by statute. It's for the 2024 general fund levy and non-general funds, EDA, library, fire. The general fund levy will increase this year 4.22% from the 2023 levy to about $2.405 million. The non-general fund, which includes the EDA, the library, the fire, They increased 5.45%, or $30,000. And I'm gonna do a high level. You guys have been through all the small numbers during the preliminary, and just so you know, none of them numbers have changed. Everything that you see in the full line item budget is all the same. So I'll just hit the high level so you guys, we can get done with this and move on. Bond levy only went up 0.17% this year, which is no new bonds have been issued for 23. I don't anticipate anything coming for 24, which is good. Tax abatement, if you remember, Timber Ridge, we just approved one for, I believe that was last meeting, for $50,000. Otherwise, that will begin taxes payable in 24, or taxes 24 payable 25. The abatements that we got on the books now is Grand Stay and Myers property. That went up 0.48%, or just $200. It's a real small increase. Some of the highlights of the 24 budget, our levy increase was from the general fund is 128,000 some change. Invenergy, that's our peaking plant out on the industrial park, actually increased 62,000, almost 63,000. We had a nice, I would call an increase from the state. Our local government aid went up 109,000, almost 110,000. You know, that took a lot of our inflation away from us. That was a nice increase. And then I talked a little bit about the investment income in our preliminary, and that went up $90,000. It went up more than that. Remember, our discussion was we had some bonds that were going to be callable, or CDs that were going to be callable, so I backed that off a little bit. One of the things I didn't get in for revenues was the small cities street assistance. It's about $35,000. So one of the big expenses that we had for this year was you undertook a pay study, try to get wages in line with their peers or the local neighboring towns. When that was all finished up, and we're not quite done, as you know, we still have 2 union contracts to go. One was ratified actually this week, thanks to Steve and Lisa, and so then we still have 1 more to go. But as of today, the pay study wage increase will be about $197,000. That includes all steps, everything up to date on the union increases, and it's not just levy dollars. That's enterprise funds, water, sewer, ambulance. That's everybody. So that's not $197,000 in levy money. Capital equipment increase went up about $60,000, 59 and some change, but our overall general levy increase was 3.89%. You know, if we wouldn't have gotten our local government aid increase and some of that other stuff, it would have been considerably more. So what are we going to do next year? Right now we got our 23-24 reconstruction project. We did that in 2 phases. We did the lift station and the under the river sewer line. That is still underway. That's the controls have yet to come, supply chain issues. And then we approved the 23-24 reconstruction phase 2 project, which consists around the river, 3rd Street, 4th Street, Cannon, etc. So that's what we'll do in 24. We also got $469,000 from the state bonding bill. That will help us out considerably with John Birch Park wall, which consists of the wall, seating above that, concrete seating above that, and the first base dugout. And then with the help of our friends from John Birch Park, they'll be doing the third base, which if you guys haven't seen, it is gone. The street lights are moved, or not the street lights, the lights are moved, and so they're ready to start building. I think they'll begin that in the spring. And also, as you know, we've been working on the EDA is constructing 29 residential lots out on the east side of town, just south of the school. Their construction has begun. They're out there grading as we speak and should be completed midsummer '24, weather depending. Getting back to Public Works, we have, if we can get some of this stuff, it's been very hard to secure pickups. As Jed said, we have to order a pickup, but they just keep pushing it back and keep pushing it back. But we do have a new John Deere mower that is scheduled, and then our yearly trade-in for the skid steer. Jeff has been working on trying to get police squads. They're supposed to be replaced every 2 years. That was supposed to be this year, and in 2025, it looks like maybe 24.
Should have been 2020, 22, and 24. But
And we're yet to get any.
who knows?
Right. So another, that's really hard on our capital equipment schedule when you start pushing things around like that and we can't get our equipment when it's scheduled. Because usually what happens is then you got stuff retiring all at the same time, and the next round it gets clumped up, and you don't like things clumped up because that raises havoc with your levy. So the proposed levy for 2024 is $3,435,602, which is a 3.89% from the 2023. Now that's minus the abatements. Remember I said it was 4.22, but 3.89. And the date of the adoption is December 19th at 6:30. No action tonight. If you have any questions, I will answer if I can. Thank you.
Any discussion from the council at this time? Remember, the public hearing is still open. I'll call people to the mic if they'd like to speak on the final budget and levy. But is there anything from the council after Neil's presentation? All right. Public hearing is open. If there's anybody that likes to speak up on the budget. Going once. Going twice. Third and final call. All right, we will close the public hearing. Anything else then from up here regarding this? Moving on to item B.
We'll be talking about it in December.
There
Yep.
we go. All right.
Thank you.
Public hearing, Resolution 2718, ordering improvements and directing preparation of the final plans and specifications for 72nd Avenue Way improvements. The public hearing is going to start with a presentation from our engineer, Bill Angerman. After his presentation, then we will open up for the questions and comments. Just want to remind you that the questions and comments are directed more at the council, and we will decide if those questions get answered, who we can defer them to, and then after the public input portion is closed, then the council can have the discussion. Okay? Bill, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, just waiting for my screen to catch up. All right, so tonight, Mayor, as you mentioned, you'll be entertaining a resolution. So tonight is the hearing, the first hearing, so this is really our first public process, other than the report and some of the discussions that you guys have been having. As you've heard me mention, tonight, the only action you'll be taking is to proceed or not to proceed. So I've referred to this as the thumbs up or thumbs down meeting, okay? So things such as details of the project financing, project dollar amounts, project interest, assessment percentages, that is not being decided tonight. Though from a staff perspective, it's always good for us to hear opinions. Those decisions, final decisions will really be made over this winter. So for tonight, here's what we're going to go over. Area background, construction, process, schedule, cost, public comments. So we'll jump right in. So the area we're talking about, 72nd Avenue Way, so it's 9 parcels. I think everybody knows where this is, right off of Highway 19, kind of southeast of the high school. And this project is adjacent to Hardwood Estates 2. I think that's some of the discussion. That project, the project to the south and to the east has begun. that is being done. The intent is to really construct these projects at the same time. Part of the reasoning for that is to get better prices. Also, some of the background that we'll go into as well about maybe how we got here with 72nd Avenue. Okay, again, the background. So, Council, we did have a report that you reviewed, so that is one of the statutory steps. So you do have to commission an engineer's report. There's certain things that you have to address in that report. You have done that. One of the things we talk about is we have to just basically explain what we have out there. So you have a gravel road. It's aggregate or rock. It's narrow in spots. Does not meet with standards. So even for now, for like ambulances and fire engine trucks to pass, typically your required width, minimum width is 20 feet. 22 is normal. So you have a substandard gravel road that doesn't meet any standards. Secondly, you have stormwater out there that is collected and transported via ditch to the highway right-of-way. You also have sewer and water that was installed there in the past, and that has been previously assessed to the property owners. And then lastly, from a staff perspective, just a reminder, we don't set the policy, but your policy is that you will assess 100%. So when we do an engineer's report, we base it on the policy, and then we talk to the Finance Committee, the Council Public Works Commission, and it's up to you to deviate or modify or change that policy. So that's really kind of the basis of tonight's presentation. Some more background items. So, part of this is this project was started almost 10 years ago. I believe none of us were here at that time. So part of that's been part of a challenge for Neil and I is what's the history? How do we end up with a gravel road with sewer and water in city limits? Okay, because that is not normal. Your actual policy, your subdivision ordinance says that you will have paved roads and curb and gutter in the city. So you have a project that doesn't have that. So we're trying to, figure some of that out, how that happens. So as Neil and I went back, so back in February of 2014, you had a preliminary plat and plans submitted for these 9 lots and the entire subdivision that is now proceeded as Hardwood Estates second. Okay, and that back then in 2014 identified 2 phases. So the first phase was what we're looking at tonight, the 9 lots on 72nd Avenue Way, and the second phase was the remainder of the subdivision. And actually, depending upon which version you had, that might have been divided up into 3, 4, 5 phases. But they clearly called out 2 phases. It was submitted for review. The city did officially review that as well. In that review, or in that process, the developer did propose that 72nd Avenue Way would not be paved during phase 1. It would be paved in phase 2. No timelines were established for that. Oftentimes, when you move forward with this, or I shouldn't say oftentimes, I'd say all of the time, a development agreement is prepared to memorialize this. And then also things like assurances that'll happen. So if a project starts, it finishes. So there's a bond or a surety of some sort. Neil and I are not aware of that. We've not been able to find one. So as far as we know, no development agreement was entered into. So basically making sure someone comes through and finishes something, or if they pave the road, et cetera. And as far as we've been asked, well, who was going to pay for the road back then? We do not know. There's not been, we've heard things, but there's no agreements to that. So basically then when there's no agreements, you default back to what the ordinance says. And hence why we're here tonight, beginning with assessment process. Last time there, which I thought was something to note, was the developer back in 2014 did propose that it would be a rural section. So what do I mean by a rural section? So typically when we say rural section, we mean something you'd find not in a city. So that is a narrow road with ditches in them. So subdivisions in the city, though, are not allowed to have a rural section. Now there are some ways that you can variance, etc. But the city standard is that you have 32-foot road with curb and gutter and no ditches. Okay, so the developer proposed that. The engineer at the time reviewed that and recommended against it, but there was never a resolution. It stopped at that point. So final plans were not completed, or final plans that we have record of. Okay, continuing on, so basically that's a little bit about the past. So then we look at, okay, what are we proposing? So again, we're required by statute to lay out what's proposed, and we lay that out based on what your ordinance says. So your ordinance says that you're required to have a 32-foot road, concrete, curb and gutter, and yeah, basically that's it. I was going to say sewer and water, but you already have that in as well. Okay, second item there is we would add some storm sewer to collect the drainage. The third item there is a pond being built. So one of the things that you are required to do is by the state is you're required to treat your stormwater, and you're required to make sure that when you build homes and roads, et cetera, that the amount of water coming off doesn't come off faster than it does now. So you are satisfying that by a new pond. So this, if this project moves forward, the stormwater from 72nd Avenue Way will be diverted into that same pond. Again, there's some economy of scale, some things that we're trying to do to make sure if we do move forward that we're being efficient and, spending, dollars, assessment dollars or tax dollars as wisely as possible. And then lastly, your ordinance also calls for sidewalk. So your ordinance calls for sidewalk on one side of the street. So we have that is being proposed as well. Okay. One of the things we have to do in the process, again, this is our first meeting for public input, is we do have to explain. Statute requires us to explain the process. So first thing that you have to do is you have to determine a need for a project. So the council did that this summer. How you do that is you authorize an engineering study, because that's the first formal step. So again, in that engineering study, which you reviewed in your October meeting, it basically goes over costs, all the things we're kind of talking about tonight. It kind of lays it out in more detail for the public. They can find that online if they go back into the October 17th meeting. Third one, so again, this is your first public meeting. So tonight, this is the public hearing. So you are gathering input on this project, because ultimately, again, your resolution is proceed, not proceed. Again, thumbs up, thumbs down. So you will consider that input. Tonight, then, this is what's called a council-initiated action, meaning you are not petitioned to do this. You took this on your own, which is really common. So tonight, to pass that resolution, you have to have a 4/5 majority. That's what the statute says, 4/5 majority, and that's commonly interpreted then. You basically take the number of people and round up. So, which would be 5 out of 6 if Neil and I did our math correct. Okay, continuing out the process. So in that resolution, then you would authorize the preparation of plans and specs. So at the last meeting, some people had asked about the design. The project has not been designed. You haven't actually authorized the design. So decisions as far as driveways, how do they connect, how the ditch get filled in, where's the sidewalk go, those sorts of things have not been determined at this point. Okay. The next step then is that the project is publicly bid. So that's what we have to do for all projects. So all projects, basically you as the city direct plans and specs, which are really the instruction manual on how you build a project. And then the low bidder, you have to award the contract to the low bid. So you cannot pick who does the project. At that point then, you will know the amount. So up until now, everything is preliminary. So everything that we're talking about, all the dollars amount we're talking about are preliminary. We will not know the actual amounts until we take bids, and I'll go over that time frame in a little bit. So everything tonight is preliminary. Now, we hope it's a little on the high side, but lately, we're always cautious in what we say, because until we open bids, it's been really hard to predict. We've had a hard time predicting our bids, over the last couple of years. So, but ideally, we're on the high side, and but it'll be what it is. At that point. Okay, at that point then, you will have a hearing, and then you'll tell everybody, okay, here was your preliminary, here's your final amount. That is when someone can contest the amount, okay? So at that point, which would be this spring, they would present evidence to you, and that evidence would be that their property will not be worth more after the project than before. That's the statutory requirement, okay? You are the decider of that. So you would hear that evidence in the springtime, and you make a decision. And then if someone would not agree with that decision, there is an appeal process. Basically, you can appeal to district court. So All those instructions we will go through, if we proceed tonight, we'll go through that in the spring. Okay, and then lastly then, the project would be built. The time frame that has been previously laid out is that this project would be built in 2024, roughly probably in the June timeframe or so. Okay, and here's specific dates. So again, here tonight, we're here for that order hearing on improvements, the up or down vote, ordering the improvements. As we sit today, we would come back, we're looking for that first meeting in February. So that would be, you would have the plans and specifications, and you would approve the plans, and that starts the public bidding process. Then we'd receive bids in March. Not sure if it's the first meeting or second meeting. We'd have that hearing, again, targeting April. As I mentioned earlier, we'll begin construction in June, wrap up construction in the fall. Okay, so again, some of those other timeframes will depend upon, how things go with design, permitting, et cetera. Okay, and then the part that everybody's probably most interested in is the costs. So as I mentioned, these are preliminary costs. They're estimated. The estimated cost is $300,000. Because this is a gravel road and without sidewalk, as your policy says today, that is 100% accessible. Okay, so that means all of it is assessed. Then the method, so there's a couple different methods that you have. The method that is proposed right now is front foot. At the Finance Committee, we did talk about, do you do it by residential equivalent unit? We talked about some different methods, but as laid out tonight, it's by the front foot. So that results in assessment range from $20,000 or $20,900 to about $58,000. We recognize, we understand assessment amounts. We understand that those are high. I mean, when I say high, that's a large assessment. Okay, we understand that. So we did go to the Finance Committee. We had 2 different Finance Committee meetings, and we talked about this at the City Council meeting. And we talked about what options do we have. We talked about options such as we could change the policy, we could change it for this project, we could, modify terms. We went through what options does the council have. Okay, so you can change your policy to assess a different amount. You can adjust your interest rate. So your ordinance says that you would charge it over 10 years, so it'd be payable on your taxes over 10 years, and your ordinance says 2 points higher than the bond buyer's index. So, but you can set that differently. So if you wanted to extend this longer or pick a different interest rate, you can do those things, but you don't do that now. Okay, you do that in the spring. But again, these are just things we want to make sure everybody understands what discretion the council has. So really going back to that second bullet, I think it's important to say that we had a lot of opinions, but both the Finance Committee and the previous council, that wasn't the place to make decisions, really. It's not until the spring, but all the people here tonight, are going to give you their opinions on this. I think it's helpful for them to know where you guys sit, and obviously that'll be your discussion and your call on that. But I just want to reiterate, no action has been taken. And again, I'm saying it probably the third time. It would not have been appropriate or wasn't the time for you to take action, because again, this is really the first part of that public process. Okay, so that is the end of the presentation. So Mayor, I will sit down, and then, as you mentioned, people can come up and address their comments to you. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Thanks, Bill. For everybody that signed up for the public input, I can follow this similar to public input and just call, and you can take turns if you would prefer that way, or we can just do public hearing and just open it up and step up as you prefer. Is there any general consensus? I'll just go off the list. We'll start that way. All right. Drew Oddie.
Mayor, can you have them state their name and address for
public record?
Yep, for public
just name
record.
and address.
Good evening. I'll begin by introducing myself. My name is Drew Oddie, and my girlfriend and I reside at 30320 72nd Avenue Way. I'm here this evening along with my fellow neighbors and kinder words would like to express our thoughts and concerns with the surprise project that has been proposed. To begin, I'd like to address the lack of information given to us residents on 72nd Avenue Way. We're only receiving 2 small pamphlets informing the upcoming plans in this new development. We found out about such a project from another resident one day prior to the last meeting being on November 7th. The lack of acknowledgement on the city of Cannon Falls puts each household in an unsettling position, as this puts every single one of us on 72nd and a financial burden. Your expectation for such a project to be our responsibility, though we feel largely such to be placed on the city or the developer. This should have taken place prior to the project's push to start. Secondly, my fellow neighbors aside for a moment, I'd like to express my household's thoughts and where this could potentially leave us. We closed on 30320 on July 31st of this year, with a dream of beginning our adult lives at the ages of 21 and 20, only to be woken up with this surprise. If you vote as us neighbors being responsible for your project, we are left with the fear of where this will put us. Will we be able to reside here? Now I'm putting you in somewhat of an uncomfortable position. If you pass this and I have to sell because of the position placed upon us, when a buyer finds out there's a $40,000 assessment on a home, how am I supposed to sell? Would you guys buy? In closing, I'm asking that you think very hard about your proposal being placed on us at 72nd Avenue Way. I understand you're wanting to keep your figures on this project in budget that you would like to see. I appreciate your time for listening to our concerns and hope that you can make an appropriate decision. I'm asking you to consider, if you were in our position, would you be up here addressing our same thoughts and emotions as us? I believe yes. Thank you.
Thanks, Drew. Thank you, Drew. Next up, Chris Illa.
My thoughts. Chrisilla at 30350 72nd Avenue Way. It's been told that 72nd Avenue is not up to city standards. So then why didn't the city follow the rules when homes on the other side were annexed into the city? This is the city project. You will benefit, we will suffer this financial burden, and to us it's not acceptable. City made this mistake years ago when they should have dug the road then. Seller of this lot didn't know, the builder didn't know, the realtor didn't know, disclose any of this upcoming assessment to me. It was commented in the November 2nd Beacon, road should have been taken care of upon annexion of when more homes were built. But for whatever reason, that did not happen. That was in the Beacon. The city needs to admit they kind of screwed up and now expect us innocents to pay.
Thank you. Thanks. Christina Sieben.
Thank you for hearing me out. My name is Christina Sieben. I live at 30379 72nd Avenue Way. I am just curious how the city allowed 6 houses to be built on the east side of 72nd Avenue Way without the road being paved. And now the city wants the homeowners to be 100% responsible for these assessments and to put in this development. It will be a major financial burden on me when the road should have already been paved. It will benefit the city more than it will benefit me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mike Bowen.
Hello. I'm Mike Bowen, 30360 72nd Avenue Way. Just to give you a little bit of background, my wife and I moved into the first house in Hardwood Estates, Block 1, whatever you want to call it, 6 years ago in 2017. So, and it was built by a private builder, so and since then, it's been completed on that block. So basically, first off, my request, as well as my neighbors, is not to be assessed to pay 100% of the cost of the road construction, which is only of the benefit of the EDA and the Subdivision 2 developers. Originally, when we moved in, it was to be a dead end with a cul-de-sac. which was a nice, private, quiet road. Now, it's been changed, and without any input to us, but it's been changed to have the entrance off of Highway 19, which would be a thoroughfare past our house to the entire development, which would be a lot of traffic, and that is really, I consider, to our detriment, not our benefit. Now, the city has proposed, and I guess it's policy or whatever, that all roads must be paved in the city limits. Well, that's actually not being done in the city right now. So there's other roads just a block away from us that is a gravel road, that's not paved. And there's plenty of other roads all around Cannon Falls that are paved, but with no curb or gutter. And I see no sense of urgency to have any of those roads worked on or improved. But the sense of urgency is our road, because our road connects to the construction of the Phase 2 subdivision. So anyway, I think my request is we should not be required to pay all that cost. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Next up, is it Mark Rosler?
I'm Mark Raisler. We own the house on 30319. And it's the corner house there. And this is a huge, I'm just a retired truck driver. And it's a rental property. It's part of my retirement income. And it's a life-changing assessment on us. It's a monthly income that's, and I can't increase my rent to my renter by anywhere near that. I mean, he's got to pay market rate, of course, and we did a good job, I think, getting a really good renter. He's a good guy, gets along with all the neighbors, and I can't force him out of there by charging anywhere near the increase in the assessment that is. So, and just that the cost of the improvement is, the benefit to us is negligible, but the benefit, of course, to the city and developer is where the benefit is. So once again, I'm in agreement with my guys. I just hope that the city and developer can shoulder more of the cost of that, even most of the cost of that, since our benefit is negligible. And the benefit to the city and the developer and I'm not against development. I just, it's just the development is going to cost us a lot of money. Life-changing, amount of money. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Mark. Next up, Heidi Blunt.
Thank you, City Council and Mayor, for taking the time to listen to my neighbors and I and what we have to say. My name is Heidi Blunt. I live at 30370 72nd Avenue Way. I have lived in Cannon Falls for almost 36 years. I was born in the old hospital that was up by Highway 52. So when I say that I am a lifetime resident, I truly mean that. My husband and I are homeowners for 2 years now. We were able to be fortunate enough to purchase the schoolhouse that was built by Mr. Walter's construction class because of the housing initiative of Cannon Falls. Nowhere was it stated that we were going to have to be responsible for paving, curb, gutter, anything like that. Kind of defeats the purpose of being part of the housing initiative if it's meant to be affordable. The thing that we are not understanding is why now? Why not when the road was annexed 20 years ago and city and water and sewer was done? We don't understand who this could be benefiting. We love the fact that we are on a gravel road. It gives us the feeling of being just out in the country enough with the convenience of being in the city. Why is it not the developer's responsibility? The biggest thing that we are wishing for is transparency. We weren't aware of any of this until 2 days before the meeting. We just want to be included, and we don't want to have to face the financial burden. I have 2 small children. I work full-time. My husband and I both work in the Cannon Falls city limits and have. I just had my 13-year anniversary at my job in town. If this is placed on all of us, we won't be able to afford to live where we live. And to me, that's not fair. I love this town. I'm a big advocate for this town, but not when I feel like we have to pay for the sins of the past. I don't think that's fair, so I really hope you consider adjusting this process for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. Thank you. The public hearing is still open. These are just the people that had pre-signed up for public input. If there's anybody else that would like to stand up and speak on this issue. Go ahead. Just please state name and address when you can.
Yep. Hello, my name's Andy Cummings. I'm actually a investor, developer, and a builder out of the Rochester, Minnesota area, and I own 30330 as well as 30340 72nd Way. I'm sorry. I guess probably just more comments than anything, I guess, and I appreciate you guys listening to this because I know you guys are capable of potentially amending this if possible, but I guess me being a developer too, I do know that we run into scenarios like this. There's obstacles for developers when they run into these things. And I just, my curiosity is the MPCA holding this up for the developer, first of all, because of how this is set up currently? Obviously, the developer has to do certain things for the MPCA, and for them to make that work for their subdivision, we are downhill of them, and I just wanted to ensure that that's not what triggered this scenario. I guess one other question probably is, who is the engineer that we are planning on working with, or is that one of the ones you said we're going to hire an engineer? Or do you have an engineer lined up, or is that the same engineer as the developer that they're using up the street?
City engineer will be WHKS that Bill represents.
Yes,
Okay.
city engineer.
Yep.
And is that the same one the developer's using too?
Yes.
Yes, okay. I guess my last comment probably, again, this was obviously a city mistake. I guess the way I look at this subdivision, these lots were sold as if they were going to be future developed. And future developed in meaning that they were going to have a curb and gutter or some sort of a road on them. So at the time of whoever bought these lots was assuming, I guess, you know, and even the city probably back in the day was assuming that these lots were going to eventually be paved by the developer who developed the street up the hill. And I guess why wouldn't that developer up the hill be responsible at this point, just like they would have back in 2017 or whatever time frame that would have been? So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak on this matter? Going twice. Third and final call for public input here on the public hearing for Resolution 2718. All right, we will close the public hearing. Council, it is our time for questions, discussion. A reminder that tonight we are not going through details of the project. Those have already been displayed with Bill's presentation. Tonight is just discussion for the project, thumbs up or thumbs down. Questions, comments?
One comment I have, I know we're not necessarily determining exactly how this would be paid for tonight, but how can we approve it if we don't know how we're going to pay for it? You know, is it going to be 100% assessed, 50, you know, whatever we come up with, not knowing what it's going to be makes it difficult to give it the thumbs up right now, in my opinion.
Sure. No, that's a very fair question. I think it's just the order of operations that we need to decide if this is a project that is a priority that we have to go through with, and then we'll figure out the details later. I know that's not necessarily the best scenario, but it's what we've got in front of us. Anything else from the council?
I would like to say that I don't think anybody's going to expect that to always be a gravel road. I think we have to approve it. We have to improve it over what is there now. So moving forward, I think we need to discuss that. We need to get that road in there. And if people think it's just to benefit future construction behind that, I don't think that's a good argument. I think if there was never anything going to be going on behind there, that road was still going to be improved eventually. Number two, as long as I'm on a roll here. Everybody I've talked to in the city said that they've paid their share on the lots they owned. And anything that the city does to help out the costs is on the backs of the people that already paid their 100%. So we really need to keep that in mind also.
Agreed.
Any other questions, comments?
Comment? And I have struggled with this whole concept. I understand the 100%. As I drove around town and made a list of all the streets that are not up to code or in need of assistance, I guess I'm at the point where I want to say, I believe the engineer at one point said the reason it's coming, there are trigger events that set in motion why we have to suddenly pave this one. Why we're not paving 71st at this time is because it doesn't have a trigger event. I am not comfortable at this point going forward with this project until we can have a game plan for all of the streets that are in need of upgrading or whatever, and kind of a ballpark figure of what years we're planning to do it so that all of our residents are not going to get blindsided by this. And so, and I've asked before if Public Works has a list of all the streets when they need to be upgraded. We don't seem to have that, or at least I've never seen it. And I would, like I said, I can't in good conscience say, yes, let's go forward with this until I have a master plan of what we're doing for all the streets in town.
Well, I think we can move forward with the project, but we can also work on assessments. Like, we don't have to kill everybody with the cost, but we can still move forward with the development. I think we can figure it all out.
Yeah, this is obviously a very difficult situation, not one that any of us want to be dealing with. We just paid off our assessment last year.
That was like 15 years.
15 years
wasn't it?
ago.
It's a long time.
And it was to put a curb and gutter and sidewalk so that there could be a development up the hill. That never happened, but it's happening now. So 15 years later, but I've been paying for it for 15 years. So I'm very sympathetic to assessments and how much they cost, and they suck.
You paid it.
But I paid it. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's
I
a
feel-
hard decision. I've thought about it for 3 days. Like, my entire 3 days off, this is what I've thought about. It sucks.
I think the difference in this one, it's just the amounts to me. You know, I don't know what yours were, Laura. I'm sure they were very high. But, 48 or what, 58,000, I think, on the high end. A couple are in the 40s.
I
mean,
agree.
that, yes, everybody has paid their fair share at one point or another, but I don't think anyone's paid, even when you adjust for, inflation or whatnot in the past, I don't think anything's been even close to that high. So that's what really.
Well, and I think a lot of times when you have a developer, it's included in the purchase price, so you never have to think about it. You're not
Right.
worried about it.
Right.
It's
Yep.
not
All this
something
happens
that.
when you buy the lot.
Right, and so since these lots didn't have a developer, that didn't happen. So is it a non-existent developer's fault, or is it the city's
Right.
fault? Or
It's not the city's
is
fault.
it
It's
just-
not necessarily your fault either. It's just a crappy situation that we're all in right now.
I think that it's pretty obvious we're very sympathetic to everybody. This is a unique situation. We've had the discussion at the Finance Committee. We talked about all the different things that we can do, as Bill kind of alluded to, the length of the payment, the interest rate, if the city does chime in, all of these things, the agreement that was around until 2017 and then went away. And then once the land is sold, those agreements are all thrown out legally anyway, so those are not standing. So now it's back on the city. I'm frustrated with 2006 annexation. I wish it would have been taken care of then. In 2006, I was living in Oregon. I would have never thought that I'd be here. I know that nobody was on the council, none of the city staff, they weren't here either. But I hate to also just blame them and scapegoat, because regardless of how we got here, here we are. So this problem needs to be dealt with. This project does need to happen to move forward. It's the how do we pay for it to be equitable to our other citizens? How do we try to make it so that our citizens who, yes, they may have gotten a better deal on the land and the lot, but they were unaware of the road and the situation. And now if we throw the 100% on them, the risk of getting kicked out of their house because they can't afford it, I hate to do that to any of our citizens. So it's my goal moving forward to be as creative as we can be. I understand that we are a town of more than 4,000 citizens. I'm not saying that the city takes the 100%, but what I'm saying is this is a unique situation, like Derek had said, but also like Laura had said. There are plenty of residents who said, wait, we just got done paying for ours, and we paid it 100% because that's what the ordinance, that's what the statutes, we have rules that we have to follow as well. So we are in a tight situation. I think it is my goal to be as creative as we possibly can be. In situations like this, it's hard to make everybody happy. But we'd like to make it so that everybody can walk away and say that the skin in the game that they have is fair and equitable, and we can move on. And it shows improvement, and that everybody at least can walk away with peace of what happened, kept them in their home, kept them supporting the town, kept their kids in the district, look forward to their future family. So, with all of that said, tonight it is our responsibility to decide if this project moves forward at this phase. So if there's more questions, comments, or concern, it's welcomed. But I would entertain a motion to approve Resolution 271A. Go ahead.
Again?
Yep.
Do we have the $300,000 available up front, or would this have to be something go out to bond?
No, we would never bond for 300. That's a pretty small amount to go out for bonding for that. You know, I'd like to just touch on something. If you approve this resolution tonight, I think you as a council should gather in a couple of work sessions immediately. What this does is it begins plans and specs. It begins putting together, drafting all the stuff that you previously approved. I know there's been a call to me, a couple calls, saying that maybe we could change it. Well, if we change it a little bit, that affects Bill's crew and drafting the plans and specs. So I think if it goes through and you guys decide as a council that this thing should change a little, vary from what Bill is in his feasibility study, we need to get that decided, not now, or not in April, but it's got to get done now because Bill's got to do his plans.
Are you speaking to like the layout of the?
Correct.
Okay.
One of them would be, and I'm just going to throw things up in the air, right? Rural section versus urban section.
Mm-hmm.
Sidewalk versus no sidewalk. Curb one side, curb both sides. You know, there's ideas out there that you could float, and I'm not saying any of them are correct,
Mm-hmm.
but it all affects Bill and his crew to put together plans and specs. And that's what this motion is going to do if you approve it. Now, and I had talked to one of you in person about some of the ways and thoughts that I have seen over the years. And one of them was we had a development that was it was going to be very financially burdensome for this person, and he developed this land and they did a 429 process on it, which is the assessment process that we're talking about today. It wasn't developed with the developer's money. It was brought through the development process or assessment process. What they had done at that time is they gave the developer or the person 5 years interest-free up front. It gives a chance for the people to pay down their principal before the interest kicks in. I don't know what 5 years out of 15, a third of it would be paid off. You don't pay interest on that. You can do most things. You can do a lot of things, as Bill relayed, I think, last meeting, that under certain circumstances, you guys have the right to adjust. And that would be a way to not bust your assessment policy. You got to think about the people that are going to come in from behind you, right? There's going to be 7 other people sitting up here in 10 years or whenever you guys decide you've had enough, and they're going to be looking at projects also. So that assessment policy is going to be reviewed more than once in the next umpteen years, right? You don't want to bust that thing because precedents are tough to take back, but you can be creative. And if you think about 30% of an assessment or reducing the cost, maybe one of them is, you know what, that sidewalk is going to serve 100 lots, the Mills property, maybe coming up from top of the hill behind Grove Street and Jablonski's. Maybe the city could take care of some of that or pay for that. Yeah, is it a lot? No, but it's 25 grand with restoration. And say, you know what, it's heading to the school. This is where the funnel will be for the sidewalk. So there's a lot of things that you can be creative with, but I think you need to do it immediately because them guys are going to want to get started. It takes a long time to get them plans and specs built, if you approve it, now mind you. But I think there is ways to reduce this. I get it. Man, it's a lot of money when you think about the young man back there and just picking up that house. It's a big lot. He's got a big lot. He's got a lot of frontage. But there's ways I think you guys can think outside the box without busting your assessment policy, because you got to think about the people behind you coming up. So, sorry for rambling on, but that's just some of my thoughts. As Lisa said, I've been thinking about this a lot too, as when them numbers started coming in, and I'm going, oh my.
A lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
The numbers are high.
Yeah. You know, you think about the 20,000, in that group of 20,000, there's several of them. You had 20,000ers up here on 3rd Street just this year. So the 20,000, you know, may seem like a lot, but I think you're going to find that's going to be a new norm with the new prices. It used to be 7 to 10, but new prices, if we'd have done this project 10 years ago, prices would have probably been 5 to 10 instead of what we're got today. So it's kind of unfortunate, but we're all getting used to a new prices. But that's all. Just kind of giving you some ideas.
Well, there's and without being redundant, you know, we got to try to make all you people happier. But there's 4,000 other people out here too that we got to make sure that they stay happy also. So my suggestion would be to get the plan rolling and set up a meeting right away with Bill and explore some of the different development options or the different construction options. Maybe that ends up being less than the 300. And like Neil alluded to, maybe that sidewalk isn't benefiting them as much as it's benefiting the whole of many developments, where we could kick in on that portion also. But I really think we got to move forward with improving that road.
I think the workshop's a really good idea.
But couldn't,
The workshop.
yeah, can't
Work
we table this motion until after we've had the workshops? I mean, I would,
Well, Bill can't officially do anything.
well, no, but he can't officially, if we're gonna talk about changing things at these workshops, then he can't do anything anyway. But I guess,
I think there's a danger of kicking this can down the road. I understand that you have other spots that we should look at, and that's absolutely fair. But as Neil just said, if this would have been done in 2006, or if this would have been done 5 or 10 years ago, the cost would have been less. And if we sit here today and say that we're doing these people a favor by trying to turn this down, we're not, because the construction cost is only going to go up. And as Neil said, there's going to be a different council here in a couple of years. And if this problem comes up with any development in the future, those costs are only going to continue to go up. We can try to, I love the idea of trying to be creative in how we can solve this, but at the end of the day, the problem isn't keeping people happy. It's not about getting votes. It's not about favorability. There's a gravel road where there should have been a paved one almost 20 years ago. That is the issue.
There's 2 gravel roads.
I know there's multiple gravel roads, and we
No,
and we should
actually,
take a.
those are the only 2 in town.
Well, then the notes that you have for different places with.
Oh, there are
Gotcha.
also
You're just
tons
talking about
of
got it.
no curb, no sewer.
Got it.
Okay,
Got
there are
it.
all of the roads that look like, I mean, there's a couple
Yep.
little areas that are gravel, but I can't quite figure out if they're actually city roads or not. But,
And that's a fair question too.
and so when we're talking about kicking or, setting precedents, we have 2 gravel roads right now that got annexed into town that weren't upgraded when they should have been.
Right.
We don't have any other problems like that. And if we're wise and don't allow any more to happen in the future, then this gives us the ability to clean up a mess that's been 20 years in the making.
Correct. Without setting a precedent that would hurt people in the future.
Right, but I think we have to deal with both 72nd, 71st at the same time. And that's why I'm saying I would just like to basically table this until we can have a couple work sessions and come up with a plan on how we're going to address it. Because once we say, boom, start it, then we're kind of always, I don't know, I don't feel comfortable with that. It's not that I don't trust you guys, but
Well, maybe that's the fire we need to get us moving.
I think if we basically table it, then we've got a fire because we need to figure out what we're doing before the end of the year. But I don't want us to give the green light right now because then we lose the incentive to figure out what we're doing with these 2 remaining gravel roads in town.
Bill?
Just a comment. It's not appropriate for me to comment whether to table or not, but just what kind of time frame do you have? If you did decide to move forward tonight, so what would occur right away is the field work, the work that's going to occur under other option. We're probably a month or so before we got to pick the fork in the road. Okay, if you don't do the project at all, well, that's a different story. But if you want to do a rural section versus an urban section, we got about a month of work to do to get to that point. So if you had a workshop in December and you came back and said, all right, go left or go right, we will not have lost any time. Now, if you stop the process, well, then that's a different story.
If we did a workshop, would we also discuss not just if we change anything, but how different options to pay to? Would that be one workshop?
Of course.
To do everything would just be
Everything will be on the table. I think it's appropriate that we not wait till April. Yeah, we can decide what this project looks like, but I don't like, as somebody said, the 11th hour. If you know how I work, we had our budget done in September. I would like to have this completed so we understand how we're going to do this. And I think there is a lot of options out there. I just named a few. I couldn't think of them all, but Bill and I will talk too. What can we do? Mm-hmm. You got to understand when you do the 429 process that there's hearings, there's publications, there's all this stuff that goes with this. To stop it all now is we would have to start it all over again. Mm. And
At the end of the day, they have, what the final number, they have the ability to appeal.
Correct. And
is it, remind me, is it appeal that it didn't improve their property or it didn't improve it by their assessment amount?
Correct.
By the assessment amount?
Yes.
So they have the ability to come back and say, you assessed me $38,000, it will not improve my value by $38,000, and here's my documentation.
Right.
And then we have to figure out what to do then.
Correct. But before that, you can come up with a plan
Right.
to say that 38,000 is now 28,000 or
Right.
whatever that number might be, right? So when that final assessment comes, that's when you guys got to have your ducks in the row and be
Right.
saying, okay, 72nd Avenue Way residents, this is what we're going to do. But I would not wait till 2 weeks prior to the hearing and have this. Me personally would like to start that right away. So,
How much, Bill, how much work can you do not having anything approved tonight? I mean,
No.
we could still,
If the project isn't approved, I would imagine it sits still, just gets tabled.
I think, yeah, we would not do anything. Basically, we would wait.
Because if you did work, we'd be responsible to pay for it, and it might be a project that doesn't even happen, and I understand
Yeah, I'll be honest, I'm not sure what discretion, the administrator has to do stuff, but generally speaking with the assessment process, you don't want your administrator authorizing things outside of the council.
If it's, Neil, if it's tabled, do we have to start the whole public hearing thing over again, even if it's just tabled? Okay.
I think, it sounds like we all want to find solutions, both maybe on the design and the payment.
Mhm.
I do think if we were to put this off, it's just going to cost the city, which means the taxpayers and probably these guys more, because, next year it'll probably be $350. So I think since we all kind of have a goal that we want to keep the prices as low as we can, I'd be willing to advance it, go to the next step anyway.
This has all been a very good, respectful discussion. I appreciate that. But with that said, Resolution 2718, if there is a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Lindell. Second by Mr. Gesme. All those in favor?
Wait, roll
Aye.
call, please. Roll call.
Can we take the,
Roll call vote.
sure, we can do a roll call vote. Yep.
Gesme,
aye.
Grote,
Aye.
Jepson,
Aye.
Johnson,
No.
Cronenberger,
Aye.
Lindell.
Aye.
Passes 5-1. That closes item B. Moving on to consent agenda. Consent agenda items may be adopted under one motion as presented or may be removed for discussion and resolution as council business. We'll go through them. Item A, just and correct claims for the accounting period that ended on November 16th. Item B, meeting minutes for November 7th city council meeting. Item C, second reading and adoption of ordinance 399 and summary of publication, an ordinance amending city code 151.112 relating to private wells and individual sewer treatment systems. Item D, resolution 2716, approving limited use permit number 2506-0026 with MnDOT. Item E, resolution 2717, accepting a monetary donation of $2,500 from Lorraine Reimer to the fire department. Item F, approve professional services agreement with WHKS for 72nd Avenue Way Improvements Project. Item G, approve professional services agreement with WHKS for Hardwood Estates Second Subdivision. Item H, approve revised pay study. Item I, approve letter of support for Progressive Rail's application for Minnesota Rail Service Improvement Program. Item J, approve massage license for Jessica Morton. Item K, resolution 2719, authorizing the 2024 city license renewals. Are there any items that the council would like to move down?
I want to pull down G.
Item G, professional services. Anything else that the council would like to have pulled down? Hearing none, I would take a motion to approve the consent agenda minus item G.
So moved.
We'll go with a motion from Jepson, second from Diane. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Moves us on to council business. We'll start with item A. G will get thrown to the bottom. It'll be item D. Item A, MnDOT Active Transportation Planning Assistance Grant Application. Laura, if you would like to take this one.
So there is, MnDOT has an active transportation planning assistance grant. And basically what I'm asking permission for this evening is to apply for that. And what it would do, they select 8 different communities throughout the state. And it isn't necessarily a dollar amount that we would be granted, but it would be basically engineering services, sorry, Bill, by a MnDOT selected engineer. And what they would do is that they would help us create a master bike and walking plan for our community and help identify where are there some gaps in our community, and especially with the new developments that we've got coming with the new apartments on the south end of town and really no safe way to get there to and from downtown. That's what that planning assistance grant would help with. So they would identify that, and then we would also get a demonstration, or they call it like a quick demo project that would go with that. And it could be where they would identify an area in town where they would set up something either for 1 or 2 days, where maybe they would put striping down, or they would maybe set up, a new crosswalk that maybe doesn't exist, or maybe it would be for a season. And that would be part of that planning grant. And then they would basically test it, monitor it, and then determine if that would be something where then we could move forward with applying for an infrastructure grant where a permanent solution could be put in. So anyway, I just figured that with our city, our intercity trail system with the Milltown State Trail, our Cannon Valley Trail, that this would help give us that master plan over the course of however many years. So just asking permission to apply. And it costs us nothing. There's no matching funds, like I said, and then it would just be time maybe from the Public Works Department to sit in on some meetings and work with that process if we're awarded. So that's
Wonderful.
all.
Any questions for Laura?
Nope. Go for it.
Take a motion to approve the MnDOT Active Transportation Planning Assistance Grant application.
So moved.
Got a motion from Lisa. Second. Second from Steve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Item B, Fire Department Relief Association bylaw amendment. Chief Altoff, you returned just in time. If you would like to speak on the
Join
Fire
the
Department
meeting. that'd be
Relief
great.
Association bylaw amendment.
Called in the town full.
There you go. Thank you.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and Council.
You putting fires out?
I was putting fires out in the entryway. No, good discussion going on out there too. So what we have on the council agenda for tonight is from the Relief Association. Our Board of Trustees was looking at some stuff all year. We're kind of actually behind the game a little bit in this from my 2 cents on it. But we're just always looking at things on how to stay with the times, stay with what's going on within our department. I put on there 40 years. That's because, you can dig back through all the handwritten minutes. I don't even know how far back it actually goes because paperwork wasn't great that long ago, that we were on this 10/20 vesting. That's kind of the big ticket item that's on that. There's just a couple little language things that really are pretty minor, more just, I think the one was basically just giving a title to a second signer for checks. We've always had to have 2 signers. We just had a title and then another. So that was really the only other change. The big thing is the vesting. And the way our pension is right now is, you got to be on 20 years on the fire department to be fully vested within our pension program. And that's kind of a lot these days. We used to see 30, 40, almost 40-year firefighters, as volunteers. We don't see that anymore. It just seems to be less and less. We have lots of firefighters leaving less than 10 years, whether they move, something happens, something changes in life, too many kids, they get too busy, whatever. And so our thought is how can we provide some kind of a benefit to someone who still comes and gives us 5 years or 10 years instead of just see a buy, because they have to be on 10 years to even be partially vested. And then it tiers up from there. And our accountant that works with us takes care of a lot of other fire department relief associations. And we were the last one of his, or are the last one that still is at 10/20. There's a lot of our neighbors around. Some are like 6/12. A lot have gone to 5/10 from what we've noticed. So there's still some out there that are 10/20 that haven't budged. But we felt our board of trustees, and then we put it to a vote to the membership, and it was unanimous to make this change. Financially, and if you got some real questions, numbers, I do have Zach, who's our treasurer here tonight. He knows the number. He's our numbers guy. Financially, it doesn't change much a percentage at all, as far as what our liabilities are. And really the big liability number that you folks need to be worried about is if we're vested 100% or not. And that would just be in the case, really, if all of a sudden you had to pay all 30 firefighters, or really in a bad case scenario, you'd have to pay our spouses, out if something bad were to happen. And if we were a severely underfunded fire department, or severely underfunded and maybe we just hit a realm where 10 people retire within 2 or 3 years, we don't have the money. That's why we're actually here tonight, and why you guys have a say in our bylaws, is because then the taxpayers are on the hook for that. It is state statute then that the city would have to come up with the pension funding if we don't have it in our bucket of cash, to be able to pay out. So that's the link, and why we're even here. Because I think that question is live, like, why do we have a say in your relief association? That's why. If we do become an underfunded fire department or a relief association, the taxpayers have to pick up that burden.
You're funded.
We are, yeah, and I put those amounts there, even with that's with the change, which our projection is over the next, I think I either put 3 or 4 years on there on what it would, and that calculates from who we know is retiring and things going on, and that's a live snapshot of right now on where our investments are. They're down right now. So if that changes in a good way, which we would hope over the next few years, we hit a kind of a sore spot about a year ago, and we've actually been going up again. We do pretty safe investments. We're not radical with what we do, so we keep it pretty on an even keel. So it does look really, our portfolio looks really good right now, and always seems to. We seem to weather the storms pretty well. So that came from a recommendation from our accountant. He was comfortable with it. The board of trustees were comfortable with it, and the membership was comfortable with it as well. So our next step is to come to you folks and see what you think. If you got any questions, anything at all, that's why I've got Greg and Zach here. Greg's the president of the Relief Association. Zach's our treasurer.
What's the average amount of time, years of service right now, like roughly?
Around 20 to 25.
That,
So really the ones that go longevity like that doesn't change it at all. We're always there. The only thing that would hurt us going to this would be some of those people in that 6, 7, 8, maybe 10-year range.
Well, when they hit the 10 years, are they going to drop off instead of having to wait? Or?
And that's a great question. We don't use this as a hiring tool, per se. We could in the future, and that's one of the reasons that we're actually doing this is, our recruitment numbers are down. We know we've got some openings coming up next year, so we've already advertised for applications for it. We're holding one application for multiple openings again right now, and that seems to be the trend we're seeing. I know when I got hired in 2003, I was one of, I think, 9 or 10 applicants, for 2 spots at that point. And that was kind of the norm back then. Now we're calling people and recruiting, trying to get applications in. So that's the concern we have too, is maybe you don't have to be here 20 years to get something. We're not advertising that, but it could be something. It's a tool we could pull out, if we need to. That was one of our thoughts behind it. The other thought, and we haven't, this is probably our 2024 topic for Board of Trustees, would be something called reciprocity. And this would align us then with other fire departments in the immediate area. So say someone were to move here from Kenyon or Zumbrota, they have to be a Minnesota Fire Department. If they move here and they're not fully vested in their fire department and then put 4 or 5 years into here and group-wise then hit a vesting number between the two of us, we would be then responsible for the 4 or 5 years they had for us, the other fire department 4 or 5 years, but they would be at 100%. So if we kind of marry up our vesting policies with everybody else, that kind of cleans that up too.
Yep.
But that's a new thing that the state's brought. That's kind of one of our topics that we're going to be diving into in 2024, is see if that's something we want to do a bylaw change again and allow reciprocity, which helps, and we do get those phone calls. We actually have a firefighter right now that would benefit from. We have one that I know is the one that's leaving, that's moving to Kenyon, that would benefit them, moving. So, and of course they're moving because they can't find a house to buy in Cannon Falls, but, so.
Hang on a little
Yay
while.
developments, right? But, Yeah, so that's kind of the
But just not.
overall gist of it.
Right.
But if you had any questions whatsoever, I know most of you don't probably know any of the ins and outs about this at all. This isn't something you guys really deal with. This is kind of an internal thing that we mostly do. We don't do a lot of bylaw changes. I think we've only done one or two in the 20 years I've been around. So it's a unique thing that you get to be a part of here. So, yeah. Any questions?
Doesn't affect anyone who's currently retired, right? Just
No, this is not
current and
retroactive.
future.
Yep, so this would be anybody from the January, so we would put in approval January 1, so anyone January 1 and beyond.
Okay.
Doesn't go retroactive to anybody.
Yep.
No, that would really hurt the
Yeah.
funding. So, yeah.
Any other questions or comments directed at the chief?
Sounds good.
With that, I would entertain a motion to approve the Fire Department Relief Association bylaw amendment.
So, second.
Motion by Mr. Jepson, second by Diane. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Thank you.
Chief. Mike. Item C, Public Works and Park Advisory Board. This is a two-part. We have to introduce and read the ordinance 400 that repeals ordinances 369 and 373. And then the second part will be introducing in the first reading of ordinance 401, the ordinance for establishing the Public Works and Park Advisory Board. This is basically a combination of Park Board and Public Works Board. It changes the amount of people that are needed, and it kind of is more efficient with time, but also with the effort, because all of the things that were done with the Park Board before usually had to clear Public Works as well, because the parks are run by Public Works. So it's, we had the discussion on this, the duplicative nature of the boards, the fact that, as was said before, the Park Board had gone away for many years, then they tried to revive it. I served on the Park Board on my time on council. This is something that we brought up and had a discussion. It had been talked about before. I don't want this to, I know that Derek's name is attached to it just because of introduction and maybe the article in the Beacon. This was discussed at the entire meeting, so you can address that with me also if you'd like. But we just felt that this is moving forward, more efficient, and it's a way that we can try to save Jed's time, but also make it so that the works that are done through the parks are more streamlined to go directly to Public Works. Instead of a two-step process, we can effectively do it in one.
So is it true that it was never discussed at the park board level?
I'm not sure if it ever made it on a Park Board agenda.
It wasn't, we didn't have a meeting in November, then the October, I don't remember when the October meeting was. I mentioned it at the end of a meeting, I think it was our second October meeting, if I remember right. And it was just an idea, and then we talked about it more in depth at, was it Finance last week?
Yep.
So, no, it wasn't.
I did have somebody ask why it was discussed at finance, and I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. And I'll be fair, when I used to sit over there on the council, when the Finance Committee started, I said, we'd have a discussion of why does the thing fall into finance? Unfortunately, anything can be put into finance if it deals with time, pay, the rate of pay, hourly, all that stuff. It can fall into finance. And with something like this, it's almost like I don't know if there would have been a better, like if we had a personnel or something like that, but those are usually closed-door meetings.
The finance used to be personnel.
Yeah, that's
the way I
Kind of
understood.
considered finance as kind of a co-personnel committee.
Right. It changed names.
How I would explain it is it's a catch-all for city council, right? Instead of, it's not specifically to this, it's something that I would bring to them. And if it's not to deal with finance per se, but like I said, they used to be the personnel committee. Well, then I don't know what happened there. And then they changed it to finance. Maybe it isn't quite the appropriate name for the committee, but they do a lot of other stuff to talk about than just finance. And if you've ever looked at the agendas, they do.
Yeah.
So.
Well,
So the park board was 3 citizens, 2 council?
No, yes. No.
No, it was
4 citizens, 1 council.
Yep.
Oh.
It was a fairly larger board, and it used to be, a couple of years ago, it was even larger than that, and had a Public Works employee that was a voting member, and so it's changed a few times in recent years.
Now, if this were to pass, would it be effective like January, I assume?
I believe it would be,
We have to have 2 readings, correct?
and then in January we reset all the boards and committees?
Yes.
Okay.
If it passes, this would be the first reading, and both of them would be on the second meeting, and then at the next meeting. Yeah, and then published, which is a week after that.
The park board is 4 citizens, 2 council. Public Works is 1 citizen, 2 council.
Parks,
Which has
Parks is
limit-
4 and 1.
One council?
It just.
One council on park?
There's
board?
only 1 in park?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, I am definitely not comfortable with the process that has happened here. I would have preferred to have the park board weigh in on this. The other thing is, we keep saying we need more citizens to be involved. Park board seems to be one of those where we actually have citizens that are excited about being on park board. They want to be there. They want to be part of it. I'm not so sure that smooshing them into Public Works is going to have that same kind of excitement. And so before we do something like this, I would think we should schedule a work session with the whole city council, not just finance committee, to look at all of the committee, commission, board structures and say, we keep putting, the tree board, which is one of our little groups that can be given to Public Works, which we always seem to do, even if we don't say that quite correctly. But, before we start moving things around, let's look at the whole setup and say, should we be tweaking all of this? I'm not comfortable with finance just having 3 council members. I think whatever that committee, it should have 2 council and at least 1 citizen. But I would think we should have a work session to look at the whole thing before we go start changing ordinances.
This is going to be hard to say, but I think I agree with Diane and Becky in saying that I think this needs a little bit more thought. And I think a little bit more input from the park board, and I think before I'm comfortable with it myself. I know at the finance committee, I thought it was a good idea, but
That will push it back a year, though, because we redo everything in January.
That's
That-
fine.
Well, I'm just saying.
I mean,
I have no problem with them being combined. I think it's a great idea.
I mean, it's two boards for the same department, I mean,
Everything that goes through both board probably ends up on Jed's desk, whereas this way, it's, and that's not necessarily the only, if it has to go through him, to me, it's just more efficient. And Diane, your point of us talking about struggling to have citizens involved, having fewer citizen requirement makes it easier to fulfill that. So I'm not saying that park board members are gone. I'm saying the park board changes to fall under Public Works. That makes it easier for us to fulfill that obligation as well. I feel like this is a win-win. Now, the way things were communicated, do people get told when they're let go? Do they have a meeting to, you know what I mean? Like in a situation like this where a thing is getting cut, they don't necessarily get a say in how things get cut. Like when the park board dissolved 15, 20 years ago, did they have meetings where they got to try to stand up and say, no, keep us? I think.
or did it dissolve because nobody was there? But
Oh.
like I said, I don't understand why we need to rush into this. We haven't talked about this at city council before tonight. I mean, I know you made this, you had brought it up as a possibility, but that was as far as we went.
Is there always a preference to have a even number for voting purposes, or is that really not an issue?
Odd number for.
Right, so so preference not to have an even.
You have 7 here, but the mayor only votes.
Right.
Yep.
Right. So there's four citizens in the park board and 1 council member, and 1 citizen in Public Works and 2 council. One of those council is double, so it's really 2, right? If we combine them, it's Derek and I, so that's not an issue, right? So what you're talking about is going from 5 citizens to 3. Can't we just do 5 citizens and move on?
That would be a 7.
I think it
mean,
sounds
If we're
reasonable.
worried about having, if we're worried about losing citizen input, then just make it the
Or
existing
attention to
members.
parks.
Literally, the existing members, just mush it together.
Who's your,
We could. Would we have to, since the ordinance is written though, are we allowed to make changes like that right now?
Sure.
Well, you say sure.
Yeah, but
well, or else we just don't do anything. I don't,
you can vote it down and
I think-
readdress,
Decide on
but
something, why do we have to just push it down the street?
You can change the ordinance and approve it.
Okay.
And then we'll bring the final, what you adopted tonight, to the final reading, the second reading.
Sweet.
Right, so can't we say that we would like to make a motion to approve with 5 citizens and 2 council?
You could do that.
I'd agree with that.
And then we can keep the existing people that are on the boards, but just have one meeting.
Right.
One of the things that I have a concern with is people participating in the future. As it's getting so hard. How many do we have on Planning Commission? Right? We have no people coming to the plate. Would any of the, if you did 5 or 3 and 2 and 5 boards on this one, would any of the members
Of the park board.
of the
want to
park
come
board,
over.
Public Works, wherever, come over to the Planning Commission? We've been 2 down on the Planning Commission forever.
Sarah, when's the last time we got a applicant or somebody that showed interest in the planning?
have somebody that applied.
I said, when's the last time? How long ago has it been?
Month?
It's been quite a while. Right.
We struggled to have a meeting the other day, and we have a special meeting to do a plat fix on, I don't know if it was the 4th or like that. And we got Ryan sitting in the standby in the weeds in case we can't get a hold of Bruce, because we got to have them all. And if we did the 5 and the 3, maybe a couple on the Park Public Works, would they mind to move over to the Planning Commission? It's a new experience. And I don't know, Ken Carpenter, he sat on council for a while, and Becky ran for mayor, and it's a good experience. I don't know, but it's finding 7, because eventually, Chuck is not going to be there.
Well, how often do you have a full group in park board?
I'm usually the only one that misses meetings, so.
Ask
I think
Eric.
the other
So we
4,
got a good group,
I think
perfect.
the other ones are usually there, as far as I know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
From what you hear.
And for public works, there's always one missing.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, honestly.
yeah. So if you have,
That's why, to me, I'm
Yeah.
like all for combining this.
It's like a
Why don't we just dissolve Public Works then? I mean,
Just
you
Jed
guys
can be,
can't
Jed
do
can be
it.
his own,
Of one.
doesn't have to go through anything. Jed, do what you want.
Well,
but
that's
the
one way
thought
to
of,
get it.
the thought of trying to get 7 people in the future
Yeah.
is going to be, then I would say somehow you get your quorum to, like we have to have 3 at the Planning Commission because it's a 5-member board. We gotta be careful on quorums and being able to hold meetings, and pretty soon 3 people are gone or 4 people are gone, and
So if we adjust the number of a board, like citizen and council wise, can we just reduce it or add to it as we see fit, or is
No,
that
you're-
It's
something
changing
we
the
have to
ordinance,
hold
wouldn't
to?
it?
it's,
Yeah.
it's based on
Okay,
ordinance.
so whatever
Yep.
we set it at, we have to
Yes,
keep it at.
right,
Okay.
yeah.
Can't you do an ordinance where you say 2 council people plus a council alternate, and then 3 to 5 members of the public?
You can't say 3 to 5 because you have to have some way of determining a quorum.
Yeah.
Well, or
3
3,
or 5?
well, you can appoint 3 or 5.
Because we
so you'll
have,
your
for
odd
Planning
number.
Commission, we have an alternate.
Yeah.
Now, it's still to be determined if that alternate is for Steve, or is it for a resident, or it can be for both.
Well, the
Because I don't
planning
think,
commission says it can be for either the citizen
it?
or the, yeah, I reread that. So you could do that same
Yeah.
here if you're worried about a quorum
'Cause-
and put an alternate.
it gets troublesome sometimes.
Well, if we did change it tonight, we'd get a better turnout for the other committee meeting, correct?
Right, you're saying if you change it, we have better attendance with the combination?
Yes.
I would assume so. I think that's part of the goal is, like I said, I think we're more effective with the combined group involvement, attendance, community obligation, council obligation, JED's obligation.
Becky, are all the park board members gonna be part of Public Works Park Board? I mean,
I can't speak for the other people. I do know 2 people that applied last January to serve on boards. They were never called. So I don't know what's up with that, but I do know 2 people that put in applications before January 1st and never got on a position as a citizen. So
Did he apply for a specific?
one person applied for 3 boards. And I don't know how many boards the other one applied for, but I'm just saying, there are people out there willing to serve. I knocked on over 1,000 doors when I ran for mayor. I talked to people who wanted to serve, but were so frustrated with the city that they didn't want to put themselves through it.
Well, that's how you change. That's how you change the city.
And that's what I told them.
They're not
But
here
you
right
see
now.
how many come,
I'd like to see those
because I
people.
encouraged them all to come and sit in on the meeting so that they could be heard. So.
All right.
What if we did, well, I mean, I don't know how you, what do you want, what if we did 4 citizens, 1 council? I mean, why does it have to be 2 council people when when it's gotta go through, anything that goes through those boards has to go to council anyway? So do 4 citizens and 1 council person then? And
One alternate from the council. The biggest thing this is just my interpretation of all the committees and boards, is the higher the council involvement, because remember, like, that's where the work gets done. That's where the bigger discussions have. When it comes to here, it's usually just the up or down. The more people that we have involved, 2, then those sentiments get brought a little bit more in front of the council when it comes to discussion. If it's just 1, like say Derek said, or if somebody's not in attendance, I feel like 2 is, and then I forget what the 2 for in January when I mentioned people, it was just more of the way things are. If that makes it more efficient to try to have members diversified in their involvement. But no, I just think that having 2 instead of 1 brings more of all the stuff that gets discussed at the meeting, comes a little bit more, the whole message gets brought before the council when it's on our agenda. But I suppose if we're looking at the total number.
well, the other thing is, Matt, the alternate can come to all the meetings. They just can't vote.
Well, or a council member can come and sit in the.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other discussion on this item? Hearing none. Do these need to be individual?
Yep.
So we'll start with item 1, the introduction and first reading of ordinance 400 that would repeal the ordinances that exist 369 and 373.
So moved. Oh, sorry.
Motion from Lundell. Is there a second?
So we're doing a motion to combine the 2, is that?
This is the one to.
This is the one that-
Repeal the previous committee.
You're
Then the
basically
next one would
deleting
be
both
for
those
the new
boards
committee.
right now.
Right.
What, Diane?
You're basically getting rid of both the park board and the public works board in the first motion.
Correct.
Right.
And the second motion establishes a new thing.
The new one to replace it.
Oh.
Yep. So motion on the table from Derek.
Second.
Second from Steve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Passes 5-1. Takes us to item 2, the introduction and first reading of ordinance 401, an ordinance that establishes a Public Works and Park Advisory Board. This is, as Neil said, this is where if you'd like to make an adjustment, you can.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 401 with 5 citizens and 2 council, establishing a Public Works and Park Advisory Board.
And 1 alternate.
And 1 alternate?
So you're gonna have 7 people and you want another alternate too?
Mm-hmm.
Is the alternate a citizen or a council?
Council member, so 3 council members involved in this now.
Is Is that necessary to have a third potential?
Well,
if we reach the quorum with 4,
So you'd,
5 citizens, 2 council, and 1 council as an alternate is what is on the table.
I
Well, you-
personally don't think it's necessary, but if that's what people
Well-
want, that's fine.
Jed, would you weigh in on that with Public Works versus Park Board? If there's any, what you see as a difference of if there were 5 citizens, 2 council, and 1 alternate? Because you have the experience of attending these meetings and seeing the attendance and.
Yeah, so like we mentioned earlier, the Public Works is usually missing a member. So I guess I don't really see any benefit of having 7 or versus, I don't know. I don't know. There's a lot of input in the park, on the park board, and less input in the Public Works. So, yeah, I mean, it'd be nice for a little bit more input on the Public Works, but side of things, so.
Yep. Right now, the motion from Laura that is on the table is 5 and 2. If a council member would like to change that, or second and bring it to a vote.
With or without an alternate, Matt?
I'm just saying the motion.
I
right
motioned
now.
without it, so I'm motioning 5
And 2.
citizens, 2 council.
I'm going to second that.
Second from Steve. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries.
Same.
That brings, you abstained from voting? All right, so it was 5-0. Brings us to, or 5-0-1 for the abstaining is, okay, like a tie in hockey, a third column. All right. Brings us down to item D, which was item G, approved professional services agreement with WHKS for Hardwood Estates second subdivision. This was pulled up by Councilmember Jepson.
Yeah, I just haven't agreed with Hardwood Estates this whole time, and I just wanted to bring it to a vote.
Okay. Item G as a standalone.
Yep.
Here we can click on.
Why isn't my thing working?
All right, mine's not opening either.
Do you want it?
No, that's all right. Bill, if you would like to go through what item G, the approving the professional services agreement, your name is attached to that item.
Yes.
Thank you.
This is for the construction observation admin, so the contract, so the city council has awarded a contract, so this is the engineering for construction. The agreements were split up to cover the design, they're just being separate. This agreement is billed hourly based on the contractor's production schedule.
Any questions for Bill or discussion? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve council business item D, approved professional services agreement with WHKS for Hardwood Estates second subdivision.
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Lisa, second from Derek. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
4-2? 4-2, it carries. Reports, we'll go,
I'm supposed to report for Maggie.
okay, well, Chamber of Commerce.
So she just wanted me to remind all the citizens that this Saturday, we have special doings downtown, Deck the Falls. And I think for a full schedule, you can go to the Chamber's website and get all the times and all the activities.
Small Business Saturday?
Small Business Saturday.
There,
I think there's pancakes in
Yeah.
the morning.
is that Lions?
That Lions are doing that.
Yep.
So it starts early and come early and stay late.
Yeah, all right. Finance Committee, most of what we had was in here. Library Board?
We went over the financial reports. We're not going to have a December meeting, and we updated the Libraries on Wheels policy.
Oh, great, thank you. We'll go around the horn. Jed?
Fitzgerald just showed up with equipment tonight. Going to break ground up on Grove Street pond probably tomorrow. Hopefully, that'll all be done next week.
Oh,
So, next week.
awesome. The ground is still soft enough, so there's.
Yeah, nothing's
we've been,
frozen
We've been
yet.
lucky, yeah, it's 50
Yes.
degrees tomorrow.
Yeah.
Bill, what do you got, if we haven't been busy enough?
Yeah, Hardwood Estates, I mentioned work's beginning. The 2023-24 street project. The contractor Fitzgerald is anticipating to move to that after they finish up on Grove. So, thank you, Mayor.
Perfect, thank you. Zach, you got anything?
Nothing for me tonight.
All right, just what we wanted to hear. Laura?
I'm good, thank you.
Chief?
Well, Steve talked about the upcoming Saturday festivities already. Took my thunder.
I was wondering what I was going to
We'll have a little bit of impact on some of our commuters on Saturday evening, but we try to minimize that impact, especially for the Highway 19 traffic. Neil mentioned during his presentation on the budget the interesting and fun dynamics we're having on getting vehicles. I've talked with the state's vendor for the state contract. They do not have the pricing for the next ones yet. They believe they're going to open in February, but they don't know when they're going to get filled, much like the one that approved last year. So I'll be putting a memo together, essentially asking you guys to authorize me to order it on state bid, at whatever that price is. We don't know, coming up before the end of the year, so that I'm ready. If it opens early, we're set to go. I don't want to miss that window. We're already on year 6 for that squad, and keeping it longer, it just keeps more expensive.
When it comes to your fleet of squads, is there a brand that it's attached to? Are you contractually obligated to be with a certain?
No, we've just found the Fords to be very good vehicles for us. We could switch to another one.
The other one's easier to get to? Are there production? Or?
I think they're almost all the same.
All the same. Okay.
One of the things is that all of our vehicles are keyed the same, and so suddenly we have to have multiple keys, which we can do. It just becomes more challenging when you're trying to wrestle with somebody that doesn't want to get in the back seat of the car, and the car's locked, and you're trying to unlock the Chevy, but the Ford key is getting used. So that's the primary reason why we tried to stay with one, and it also keeps them consistent through the fleet. Equipment, buttons, everything's in the same spots.
All right. Thank you, Chief. Sarah? All right.
Hold
Neil.
on. Did we ever get a final number of remember that number that I can't talk, it's time to go. That Northfield got so much money from the state or something to help with loss?
Every city received, I don't know off the top of my head what our final number was. We did get noticed on it.
Cool.
I'm thinking it was about 70, maybe a little more.
For what?
70,000?
Yep, but we can't.
Northfield got 900,000 and we get 70?
It's all per capita.
That's crap.
I won't disagree. I'll take the Northfield number, but
All right.
But we can't spend any of it until after, I think, the 27th of December. Anything we spend it on before then don't count. So we're sort of stuck. The state has set the amounts, but the rules that go with it are still percolating down.
Okay.
Neil, anything you'd like to add?
Yes.
All right.
When do you want to do a work session on 72nd Avenue Way? Well, let's get it decided.
No. Yeah. Let's do
Before
it
next
quick.
meeting?
If we do December, maybe the first one, because the second one you get a little closer.
I'm going to be
Excuse me.
gone the first meeting.
Well,
That's when we should do it.
is this
That's
an
when we should
excuse?
do it then.
Yeah, maybe that's
Bill,
what we should do it.
when are you available?
Well, you do have assessment hearing on the 5th for the final assessment hearing for the 23-24 street project. So, what are you thinking?
Well, if you want to do it on the 5th, that's fine.
We could do the night. I think we should do it at one of those two.
Should we do? Is everybody available next Tuesday?
Next Tuesday.
The 28th?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
we have joint powers board, but I mean, whatever, we can skip it. Brad Anderson left, so we can skip it.
I'm not available on the 28th.
No?
No.
So the 5th before the meeting, but Neil will be absent.
Does it have to be a Tuesday?
Huh?
Does it have to be a Tuesday?
It just, because we'll all be here, so.
Monday?
Monday the 4th?
Put makeup on Mondays.
Bill, I'm talking.
Monday the 4th?
What time would it? What time?
Next Monday?
Oh, the 27th. Okay.
Oh, 27th?
I guess.
Yes.
Feels like a high-stake game of poker.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all right.
Monday the 27th?
Monday, the 27th?
All right.
What time?
5?
The later the better. I work that day.
5 o'clock, can you make a 5?
Work.
Yeah, I thought you were retired.
We all work, Gesme.
Get a job at Cannonball to
Lord.
pay your tab?
Set it for 5. I should be able to.
5 o'clock,
Jeez.
Monday, the 27th. Put it in your calendars.
That might not be off by 5.
All right.
Post it.
Council members, Laura, anything?
I'm good.
Lisa?
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Oh, yay.
Ryan?
Good.
All right. Derek?
Nope.
Diane? Nope. Steve?
Gobble, gobble.
All right. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Congratulations to the Bombers football team making it to the state semifinals. Congratulations to the musical doing Beauty and the Beast. Are there any groups that I missed out, Diane?
That was really good.
All right. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everybody.